This is an interesting piece. It's a portrait and it's in profile. I have it here in black and white, but this is the original in color. When you draw it, you should probably draw off this on the PDF. There's a slide that looks like this. That would help you. But I want to look at it in color. It's an interesting piece from 1488. It's oil and tempera on wood. So it's painted on a panel. Tempera is pigments in egg yolk as the binder, egg white and yolk sort of mixed together as the binder. This is a portrait of Giovanna Torrabini, I think. Tornabuoni. I can't say her last name very well, obviously. And it was made by Domenico Ghirlandaio. Sometimes people say actually his last name is Bigordi, Bigordi, Bigordi. But I think he must have changed his last name for his art. Interesting. He was a painter, mosaicist, and possibly also a goldsmith. This question mark is because they're not sure if this is the woman. They think that's who it is, by the way. Together with his brothers, he ran a prestigious and prosperous workshop specializing in fresco decoration, which is painting into wet plaster in architectural settings and rooms, and also easel paintings. This is a version. This would be an easel painting on a panel. He worked in Tuscany, particularly in Florence, and he did some work in Rome for Sixtus IV, along with other leading artists of the day. He painted the figures of the doctors of the church in the Biblioteca Apostolica, which is in the Vatican. It's the Library of the Apostles, in 1475. And he also worked in the Sistine Chapel, the famous one that Michelangelo did the ceiling for about a year, and with the calling of St. Peter and Andrew. Saints Peter and Andrew is a piece he did there. So did some pretty renowned things in some pretty important locations in the Vatican. He had a highly developed narrative sense, and he filled his scenes with elegant figures and sort of secondary anecdotal elements, which ended up acquiring a lot of importance, sometimes even more than the principal person. That's this type of stuff. The way in which he included different objects sometimes almost became more important than the figure. It's a really, really fine example of 15th century Florentine portraiture. Artists of this time followed classical dictates, which means body proportions were idealized. So they made them look ideal in the beauty that they were depicting of people. Faces were often left devoid of expression, like this. She doesn't have a smile or any kind of real expression. They were expected to convey the character of the person without expression. It's called a half-length portrait, and she's in a strict profile. That means her eyes are, looking that way, in the side of her head, and her body up to, around just above her waist. In the background, there's a collection of different types of belongings that appear within this simple architectural frame. And these are part of what communicates her character as well as what she's wearing, her dress and things. She's holding a ring, a brooch, some kind of necklace, the way her hair is done. All of these things are about communicating what type of person she is. This right here bears this small piece of paper, is called a cartino, is a piece of parchment painted illusionistically, and often they were attached to a wall or a parapet in a painting, commonly with like the artist's name or that of the sitter on them. This is a common thing, a common convention of the time. It has an epigram that is by Martial and the date of his death in Roman numerals. So that's interesting that it has like a poem on it. An epigram is like a pithy saying or remark expressing an idea in a clever or amusing way, and or a short poem, especially like a satirical one, having a witty or ingenious ending. So that's what's on there. This is what's written on here. So that's kind of an important part of this person's character. They liked literature. Maybe the nature of that one helps identify how she was as a human. Martial was a Roman poet from modern-day Spain, best known for his 12 books of epigrams. It was published in Rome between 86 and 103 during Domitian and Trajan's times as emperor. In these like short, witty poems, he cheerfully satirizes city life and scandalous activities of his acquaintances. He kind of has a total of 1,561 of these. So it was kind of an important inclusion. The model has been identified as this woman on the basis of the medallion that she has here. Um, and there's also a likeness of inside of a medallion and her name, so that's why they have it inside of a medallion. In the other one, she's portrayed full length, and she was also painted in a chapel called the Church of Santa Maria Novella in Florence. So, somewhat of a famous sitter in a couple pieces, maybe because she was thought to be beautiful, and also she was obviously rich if someone was having their portrait painted during this time. Obviously, she's into books and witty things. There's jewels here and jewels here that sort of match. And there's something of an idea of a rosary here. So she's a religious, pious type of person into those things. She's wearing, finely constructed garment with really fine cloth and beautiful patterning, holding something, not quite sure what, looks like a handkerchief. She has a ring on her finger. So a lot of symbols of wealth, but kind of a little understated in the sense of there's a modesty to the whole thing. So she's kind of being shown as a pious, beautiful woman who's in a lot of either art and also religious as well as being in fashion. So this is kind of the idea that's coming through from the portrait. I think that if we look at the pure design of it, we can see how he has really captured the likeness of a person in pretty good an anatomical reality with the eyes at the middle. Everything's where it should be in the face, and this is very realistic if you grade up the head. So that's pretty amazing. The neck is a little long, actually, so that's kind of maybe part of the idealism to elongate the neck, make her feel more vertical, have verticality. But overall, everything's very anatomically correct and has a really beautifully accurate modeling of light source that's coming from here. There's a lot of shadow in this simple frame architectural. It kind of gives us a feeling of home or place, but not with a lot of detail to it. And there's shelves, but the depth of space is kind of blocked off by the back of this bookcase. There's really a lot of darkness that this bright flame colored garment comes out of with her bright, reddish hair, and then reds and yellows pop throughout it with the gold and jewels. This is an interesting idea. When we look at her face, we kind of see here it goes into the bun of her hair, and then it kind of leads our eye down into the epigram and then back through the figure. Back up, we notice the different things, and then go into the space. So it's got good eye movement to help us see all this stuff. This is especially the one that kind of almost bothers my eye in a way because it's going right into her head, into her brain almost. Which is an interesting position to put this rosary. I think it's purposeful. It kind of feels almost like a curtain in a way that isn't there even, which is interesting. And it's a really strong element to pull our eye into the things in the background compared to just her body and face being the focal point. When you open your eye, close your eyes and then open them, the focal point's right here, there, and there. It kind of creates this movement around. from here to there to there to there, back and forth with all the jewels and things. So it keeps our eye moving in an interesting way. I'm not sure I'm a huge fan of it going right into her head, but nonetheless, it was an interesting choice. The white here also draws our eye down, and then this brings us back in. So there's a lot of good movement and a lot of reality to this. Difficult task to create art like this with so much value. You can see the strong value pattern he had in the work in this black and white version with the frame and everything else. How much depth he created through, even though it's not deep space, through just value shifts, small value shifts in the color. Obviously, color, I've said to you many times, is value as well. But in this sense here, monochromatic value we're talking about. When I made it a black and white version, we can see how the colors have value and how the sitter pops out in the front of it because she's lighter in value, lighter colors, right, than the background. But it has still a feeling of like a bookcase or architecture behind it, behind her, with shelving and things like that. So pretty interesting piece, really well done. Amazing. There's a reason why it's been saved for this length of time, obviously. And you can see how accomplished he is in his rendering of human form. Just subtlety like the ear popping through the hair, this very fine line of the necklace, all this patterning, little bit of threads. There's so much detail in this work. So great one for you to look at and study and think about. This is a cool piece. So if you have any questions about it, please feel free to ask. Reach out to me in all the ways. If you have questions about any of your projects, I've told you many a times I can be contacted in lots of ways. So take care, guys. Talk to you soon.